There is no end to the tussle between the Electric Vehicle Association and electric vehicles in general, who have now claimed that they did not get the subsidies for even half the mandated 1 million units that they manufactured up until now. Remember, the Ministry of Heavy Industries has now suspended subsidies for two-wheeler OEMs under FAME 2 as of December of last year, because it says that it has received complaints regarding misappropriation of funds. Now, since the EV makers say that they're awaiting their dues, they have released subsequent statements. Remember, launched in 2019, the Faster Adoption and Manufacturing of Electric Vehicles Scheme, or FAME scheme as we call it, has an outlay of 10,000 crore rupees. It ends in March of 2024. There is a push by EV makers to extend it for 3 to 4 more subsequent years, but it looks like, as per latest news that is coming in, that the government is in no mood to extend it. The government, in fact, reports that are out there are saying that if there is any money that has not been utilized towards FAME 2, as we call it, which ends in March of 2024, the remaining money will go towards FAME 3. Now, these are all news reports, but the tussle between EV makers is still ongoing. The government and EV makers, they're not coming at a conclusion on whether FAME will continue or not. We're going to understand all of that and more. With me in the studio, my colleague Karthik. Karthik, what is the bone of contention between EV makers and the government, and especially the Department of Heavy Industries, which is dealing with
Shweta,
EV
it seems to me that there is right now a data reconciliation problem. And at the same time, there is an audit which is ongoing for the government to really understand that has the utilization of the 10,000 crores allocated, and therein whatever amount has finally been utilized, in some subsidy or the other. There seems to be a tussle that that perhaps there hasn't been the correct utilization. Rather, there's been some misutilization of the funds, which don't fall neither under the FAME subsidy or even the PLI for that matter.
Right.
FAME subsidy was, of course, originated to be a fillip to startups and small companies getting into EV manufacturing, as well as some large companies that are already manufacturing electric vehicles. The mid-sized companies were excluded from the FAME framework.
Okay.
However, I think right now the tussle between, and there's a statement that the SMEV, the Society for Manufacturing of Electric Vehicles, came up with yesterday evening, was that the electric vehicle manufacturers have spent something close to 1,200 to 1,400 crore rupees from their own pockets. Let me explain this to you. An electric scooter which costs, let's say, 1,20,000 rupees. Now, okay, so, just to make it idiot-proof, 1,50,000 is the cap for two-wheelers to avail the FAME subsidy. Now, coming back to the example, let's say 1,20,000 rupees is the cost of an electric scooter. The FAME subsidy subsidizes it by 50,000 rupees. So, the manufacturer is able to sell that scooter to the end consumer for 70,000 rupees. Now, apparently, scooters have been sold to end consumers for 70,000 rupees, but the 50,000 rupees of subsidy has not really come from the FAME scheme, but it has actually gone from the pockets
of the electric manufacturers. So, EV makers are bearing the burden of it.
They are bearing the brunt of it. So, they are saying out of the 9,50,000 odd, 9,50,000 odd electric scooters that got sold, only 4,50,000 have actually received that subsidy of 50,000 rupees.
And the
remaining, that's literally half. And the remaining 5 lakh, more than half in fact, are yet to receive the. What the government is saying, on the other hand, the Heavy Industries Ministry is saying that there is a paperwork going on, there is a bid to try and understand whether the subsidies are correctly utilized or not, and basis that the funds will be released.
Okay. We have a power panel joining us to discuss the road ahead for FAME scheme and electric vehicles in general. Joining us at this point in time, Shubhendu Jyoti Sinha, who is the advisor, infrastructure, connectivity and electric mobility at Niti Aayog. Also with us, Arindam Guha, who is a policy expert. Joining us, Sohinder Gill, who is the DG of SMEV. Gentlemen, appreciate you taking time out. I want to go to you, Shubhendu, first. You heard what Karthik said. There is a mismatch, is what SMEV is claiming, EV makers are claiming, between what government claims to have paid the manufacturers as a subsidy and what they really have gotten. Now, SMEV states that 1,200 crore rupees of subsidies have not been paid to manufacturers till date. Who have, and these are the people, they've given discounts to the people who've bought these vehicles. So, essentially, end users like me, if I buy an electric vehicle, I've got the discount, but EV makers say they've not got the money. Is that correct?
So, I should put it this way, that in the FAME scheme, in the FAME 2 scheme, there is a component of incentive for demand generation. So, if somebody is purchasing 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, somebody is purchasing 4-wheelers as an aggregator. So, there is a incentive component attached to it. Now, I do not have an exact number that what amount government has paid and what claim SMEV is making, but my understanding is that there is a completely well structured, well oiled system whereby the payment is taken forward, and these payments, these incentives, what is recouped to the manufacturers, to the OEMs, this is not in a haphazard way. It is a very well regulated way in which the entire flow takes place. And yes, if there is some issue, that could always be taken up with the ministry concerned, and there is a definite quality parameters. It is not only that you have sold a vehicle and then you are, that entitles you for the and makes you eligible for the incentive. Basically what you will have to do is that you will have to also accept, you also have to live up to those quality parameters.
Okay.
Then only it would be possible to get those incentives.
What exactly are those parameters, if you could elaborate on some of them?
Those quality parameters are basically quality parameters, parameters with respect to the speed, for example, parameters with respect to the localization percentage, for example. It can't be a stuff which is brought from all over the country, claim that it is made in India. No, only that is assembly. It has to be really make in India kind of component. As I told you, that if the national aspiration is that we want to be globally best, we want to make India a global manufacturing hub on electric vehicles, then how it is possible that you always rely on external players and then try to go ahead? It has to be make in India. If you see the economic survey, it so clearly lays out that by the time we are touching 2030, at least 10 million units, that is 1 crore vehicles of electric, they should be manufactured in India. So that is what the national aspiration is. Yes.
Okay. Let me come to Sohinder Gill at this point in time. Sohinder, you heard what Shubhendu had to say. There are certain parameters, and the expectation, of course, is that EV makers will live up to those parameters if you want to continue availing subsidy. Your take, sir, on whether the government, we don't know whether the government will decide, of course. The news reports say that the government will extend FAME scheme only depending on whatever amount is left that is not utilized or allocated as of next March. But your take on what Mr. Shubhendu said.
Thank you. Well explained by Sohinder ji and Karthik, very well put forward. And let me take you to the larger picture. See, today, if the subsidy goes away, the cheapest vehicle, which is CMBR certified, totally localized, will cost at least 1.4 lakhs upwards, on road 1.5 lakhs, right? And the vehicles which are promising to be like equal performing, which are little higher speed, they will cross 2 lakhs. So the first and foremost is the right time to pull the plug out of subsidy and let the electric vehicle get derailed, or let it live its own dreams of going down the dumps and again coming up? Because we find that at 2 lakh plus, there is no customer today buying any electric two-wheeler who has a choice of buying a 80,000 or a 90,000 worth of a petrol two-wheeler. So first and foremost is the larger picture, that it's not the right opportune time to pull the plug of subsidy. Second is, when in 2019 this same scheme came, everyone in the country, including Niti Aayog and many private organizations, MOSRT, declared, and even Prime Minister gave his sort of backhand on that majority of two-wheelers, because two-wheelers are the low-hanging fruit, majority of two-wheelers in 10 to 12 years should be electric. Which means by 2030, and there are figures being quoted everywhere, by 2030, a large part of those so-called, today, we are at 1.6 crores petrol two-wheeler. By that time, it will be 22 crores. A majority of that should be electric. Say around 1.5 crores should be electric.
70% need to be electric.
So we are following a journey of around 12 years to make it 1.5 crores electric, in which the first 4 years, if you just work back, should have been at least 2 to 3 crores, if not more, just by working back. If you want to do really, no, not to 2, 3 crores, 20 to 30 lakhs. So out of that, now we are talking of 10 lakhs in 4 years. That we have done 10 lakhs in 4 years. That is what the FAME is claiming, that we have almost completed 10 lakhs in 4 years, so we need not subsidize anymore. So that is one of the point of contention, that is it good enough, or if not, then what else to do? Second part is, out of this 10 lakhs, as claimed by one of the petition by one of our SMEV members, is that out of 10 lakh, at least give acknowledgement, acceptance to the 16 or 15 EV two-wheeler members who have been doling out their own money for last 12 months or so, up to around 50% of this money to make it happen. So out of 10 lakh, it is around 50-50 paid by the government and 50% paid by the customer. So let us acknowledge and accept that industry has equally contributed. And if it was only the FAME to government money, it is only 500,000 or 600,000 that has supported the two-wheelers. The rest of it has been supported by the electric vehicle OEMs, and there are around 14-15 of them who are under sort of issues or interrogation, like Sohinder Gill is saying.
Okay.
The third part is that this issue has become a bone of contention because of the time, and it has taken around 12 to 15 months to reach some conclusion. The industry is demanding that it was a dream come true as a subsidy scheme. It was a great scheme. But because of this small thing in between, for example, all the parameters, around 14 parameters, the 13 parameters are being kept, met by all the players. Only one parameter of delay in localization is there, which has to be some resolution, which is not being there for last 12 to 15 months. So industry is demanding a rapidness or quickness of resolution so that the next year is also not lost, means the current year, FY24. Because last year we lost heavily. At least this year we can resolute, and it is very easy resolution. Just sit across the table, decide whatever you want to do, go back onto the track, and go back onto the national thinking and aspiration of making it happen at around 80-70% of the petrol two-wheelers to become electric in 12 years. That is basically the point.
Mr. Gill, we'll come to whether the FAME subsidy should be and will be extended or not. But just to sort of rebound the point that Mr. Shubhendu Sinha had just made some time back about the ministry really checking whether the Make in India targets on EVs have been met or not. How confident are your association and society members that they have strictly followed the guidance of Make in India as far as securing the components and not just assembling imported components is concerned?
All the players individually and collectively have been saying that today, for the last 6 months, everybody has met 100% targets of localization with best of the Indian companies called Exide, Bosch, Nidec, etc., and all the A-class suppliers. But 4 years back, none of these suppliers existed.
Of course.
For electric vehicles, and the total industry that time during the FAME 2 was doing only 25,000 a year. Today we are doing 75,000 a month. At 25,000 a year, if those members were going to suppliers, and suppliers are not reporting to OEMs, they were going, please make batteries for us, make motors for us. They were joking and saying, you are making 25,000 a year, you want to make batteries in India? For what? So what is being told to explain to the ministry is that it's not who did it and how much it was done. We should also go to the third step of why it could not be done by cross-checking with the suppliers who are not a part of the ecosystem of OEMs. And mind you, one more thing, electric vehicles are largely made as components from outside. For example, 50% of the cost of battery is not being made by OEMs, they are being made by battery specialists. Again, 15-20% is a motor. It is not made by OEMs, it is made by specialist motors. So 75% of the cost of the vehicle comes from supplier, and those suppliers are not ready to supply in 2019-20 at a volume of 2,000 per month and 6 models. All that we are saying is, please give some sort of a flexibility for during those 2-3 years.
Okay.
Then this was the problem, and also COVID came in between. Now everyone is okay for the last 6 months. Check, double check. And every parameter, quality, performance, speed, range, everything is perfectly all right. At least start subsidy on those. while we are having a resolution of the past. And for the past, be a little flexible. Nothing is lost if there was a 1 or 2 year delay of localization and all other parameters were kept.
Okay.
So it is only sitting
Let's
across
get-
the table, very easy to do.
Okay, let's get Arindam at this point in time. Arindam, you heard what Sohinder had to say. He said even if localization norms were not met, other parameters were met. Government has set a rather ambitious target, and we are doing the best we can. COVID came in between. There was a delay. There is a supply side issue that we had little control over. But the government, of course, they're trying to pull the plug. What is the way ahead for FAME scheme?
No, I think, this issue will definitely get resolved. I don't have any doubts on that. But I think a very important point was made by the gentleman speaking before me, which is the differential in costs or the component of costs when it comes to, let's say, electric vehicles. I think all of us know that, around 40%, if not more, of the total cost is accounted for by the battery in any electric vehicle. And that's a key commercial determinant when it comes to the buying decision. I think one of the policies which has been announced, but which is yet to be implemented, becomes very important in that context, and that's the battery swapping policy. Because once implemented, that has the potential to do two things. One is it has the ability to bifurcate the electric vehicle into the rest of the vehicle vis-a-vis the battery. And, if battery as a service, which is the concept being, pioneered by the government, if that gets adopted, then automatically what will happen is electric vehicles can get registered sans the battery. The valuation, the pricing differential between an electric vehicle and an internal combustion engine vehicle would come down.
Yeah.
And battery can be offered, the battery swapping facilities can be offered to the consumer at a cost. So I think looking forward, that is one of the key aspects which really all of us need to focus on. And I am hopeful that whatever differences of opinion are there in terms of standardization of the batteries which are to be charged, those get resolved very quickly.
Okay. We were discussing this, Karthik. Instead of a pre-sale, some sort of incentive, this could be a post-sale incentive where you would allow for more charging stations, a better ease at battery swapping, better e-mobility solutions, all in all develop infrastructure for electric vehicles in India.
Correct. So again, I think there are both sides to it, and I'm not sure Mr. Gill would be very happy with an arrangement like that because he represents the manufacturers of electric vehicles. But at the same time, you may be able to incentivize buying an electric vehicle by subsidizing the one-time cost of purchasing it. I think there is as much need to focus on the post-sale experience by setting up, like Arindam was mentioning, battery swapping infrastructure, charging stations, e-mobility, highways, and overall the convenience of owning and riding or driving, as the case may be, an electric vehicle rather than just buying one through a subsidy, which I think the government, even if it were to extend FAME beyond the end of this fiscal for another year, another 2 years, it is only subsidizing the cost of ownership, not doing much in terms of the utility and post sales of owning and really experiencing your electric vehicle.
Okay, let me come to Shubhendu. Shubhendu, where is FAME headed from a government's perspective right now? We are given to understand that the policy may continue if there are unexhausted remaining funds with FAME 2. We don't know whether that's going to happen or not, but what's the future looking like for subsidy on the pre-sale of vehicles, electric vehicles?
So you see, as far as post-sale thing is concerned, in the existing structure also, charging infrastructure has been incentivized. But yes, what other enablers, in what form they should be incentivized? My sense is that yes, the enabling infrastructure should be incentivized. Charging infrastructure is one area that should be incentivized. Those who are aggregators for four-wheelers, we are supporting them. Similarly, those who are operating the vehicles, let's say public buses for example, they should also be, some support can be thought of. So, and battery swapping is a new thing that is gradually getting into the space, that could also be taken up for support. What I am trying to say is that now the stage in which we are there, the enabling infrastructure have become all the more critical than the actual sale of the number of vehicles. So, my sense is that there should be a very harmonious kind of balance between these two, and that is how the support should be planned.
Okay. You know, I want to talk a little bit more about battery swapping and how that infrastructure is going to operate, what will be challenges around it. But before I do that, Sohinder, I want you to come in here. It looks like the government is in no mood to extend FAME subsidy. Been hearing about this for a while. What would you do further to this if FAME subsidy does not continue? I know that you're looking to at least get the money back from the government to what they have pledged and what you have sold. And what about the inventory? If you could quickly take us through if there's any inventory left as far as FAME 2 is concerned. What's the way forward for EV makers from here on if the subsidy goes away?
It will be very unfortunate because we are at a nurturing stage, like a sapling, where everything is coming into place. For example, localization is perfectly achieved. Swapping policy is a great policy, like Arundhati was saying, has just come into forth. Charging infrastructure is coming on. With this, everything in place, if you increase the price of a vehicle beyond the reach of a customer, there will be a total derailing of two-wheeler electric vehicle for many years. Nobody, as I told you, is going to look at total cost of ownership or an enabling structure if he has to buy worth 2 motorcycles equal to 1 electric scooter, right? So at 4.9% electric mobility conversion out of the total, it is too small a base, too little in volumes to pull the plug. When it reaches, all over the world we have seen, when it reaches around 20% conversion for a petrol vehicle or a dirty fuel vehicle to electric, that is the time to taper subsidies. Problem is Exchequer doesn't have that much of money. And we know that where from this 50,000 crores will come. That's why we have been saying time has come for the large players to start either becoming electric or footing the bill for electric, which means some sort of a green cess or something, or something has to be levied in order to create that kitty to be able to take electric vehicles to a level where they can themselves take off beyond an inflection point. It is far away today.
Okay.
But Mr. Gill, sorry Shweta,
Yes,
if I can get a minute with Mr. Gill. Mr. Gill, but for the large players also to set up, then there has to be a very clear business model to it. Minus the subsidies from the government, will the big players, the large brands in the automobile sector really find it lucrative to go in for mass manufacturing and sales of electric vehicles?
See, the large players have got the advantage of PLI. The MSMEs and small players have not got any of those advantages, so there is a different level playing ground. Right. So within that, and large players have large muscle power, they have deep pockets, and they can take it as a project expense if they're really serious, because one day a country will bring electric. So from that point of view, they are insulated from the problems of those 2026 startups and MSMEs who started this electric. I think we should not make them die out. Let both the types remain, large and medium, and let there be healthy competition where battery swapping will come out in a big way. Already many members are doing 20% of the business in battery swapping. Other things will come. This is too premature to sort of such a grand idea of India to become carbon neutral and being crude oil from point of view of being able to self-reliant. It's too premature in time to pull the plug, and country will be paying a heavy tax because of that.
But you already have large players, sir. You have large players like Hero Electric. You have a fairly large player like Ola in the business of electric two-wheelers. I mean, who else do you see in the two-wheeler space coming in? And even if you were to talk of four-wheelers, you've got players like Tata already in EV space. You've got players like even MG as recent as 2 days ago launching, a small-sized, low-cost electric vehicle. So the large players are also coming in. So, do you expect more number of large players to take a hit on their P&L and budget it as an expense and really go and experiment with this case with PLI but without the FAME subsidy?
Not at all. There are a number of players and there is the intention of those players. We have seen the entry of large players only lately. One is that, right? They were fence-sitters. Till the time they were bulldozed by our ministers and all that, you better become electric, right? That's one. Second is that whosoever has come in are fearing inconsistency in policy and transparency of policy in the future, what will happen. Third is they have a large 99% portfolio on which they are sitting and trying to protect that, thinking that they will be able to protect it till the time they are pushed against the wall. When will that time come? So they are there but not there. You have seen the numbers, except Ola, which is doing good because of some other reasons. All the numbers of Hero Moto has done less than 2,000 in 5 months. Imagine the number of a company which does in 1 hour 2,000, and so many others. So large players have to be serious players also. No? And they are losing PLI benefit year on year. And they are keeping on dirtying the cities, air polluting the cities, and also not taking care of the national mission. So they have to be the nudged, pushed, or they themselves have to come into jumping into this foray. Otherwise, it will always become jungle raj for everybody.
Okay. Let me come to Arindam at this point in time, and also you, Karthik. We've been talking about battery swapping for a while, and that looks very lucrative from the outside. But the larger question on what happens to the life of a battery? What if you swap a newer battery for an older battery? How does the entire ecosystem operate? Do we have any clarity?
We need to understand that, and I think Mr. Sinha will be the best person to answer
Absolutely.
that. But I think how I see the challenges that I see from the outside, I'm not part of the industry, but journalistically, if you look at it, it's very difficult to fathom a station in the middle of a highway where you take out one battery and it is replaced by another battery for a private vehicle. I think there is a better case for a battery swapping arrangement to work for large vehicles like buses. But for a private vehicle, you're driving a particular model that will have a certain capacity of a battery, a certain size of the battery, a certain vintage of the battery. I mean, your battery could be as little as 6 months old, but what it gets swapped with could perhaps be 2 years, 3 years old. And do you eventually ever turn around and get your battery back? It's like, in our childhood, we would write our names on currency notes and hope that someday they're going to come back to us. They never did. So will the battery that you actually paid for and an expensive piece of equipment, is it ever going to come back to you?
Okay.
So I don't see a case really for private vehicles to really avail of the battery swapping facility.
Okay. Mr. Guha?
Well, I think that's a very valid point. But the issue there is, you see, like any new industry, there will have to be a proper set of regulations for ensuring quality of service. So, for example, if you are talking about swapping, see, the basic principle is that once your battery gets discharged, or you are not able to operate it beyond a certain number of kilometers, you swap it with a fully charged battery. Now, naturally, the age of that battery, which replaces my current battery, may be different. And that's where the regulations come in. And that's where the quality standards come in, which every player in the swapping industry or the swapping life cycle has to guarantee a certain standard of service so that the consumer is comfortable. Because I do see swapping as making two very important contributions to this sector. One is, of course, as we discussed before, it could help in addressing the differential costs at the time of buying the vehicle. If somebody provides battery services as a service, okay, that's one. The second issue really is that this uncertainty in terms of the charge running out for long distances, or let's say, in Indian cities which are heavily congested, that also gets addressed if we have a good, proper network of battery swapping centers. And the third and equally important point is that this is also an opportunity for the small and medium enterprises to set up maybe specifically medium-sized enterprises or even the slightly larger of the smaller SMEs, which can operate this segment and create livelihood opportunities. So
ever get my battery back is my question,
component.
Arindam. Even if the SMEs come in, even if you have great infrastructure, am I ever getting my battery back? I'm on a highway, I take my car, it's out of battery, I swap it for another battery, I drive around, take another route.
As part of the regulations. No, I think Mr. Sinha talked about identification of batteries, and the moment you are using specific battery identification, the life, how old it is, etc., all those get captured. And that's where the regulatory framework has to kick in, so that the consumer at the end of the day doesn't feel that he's lost any particular value as such by participating in this ecosystem.
Okay, let's get Subhendu Sinha at this point in time. Subhendu, will the customer ever get their battery back? That's the big question here. If not, aren't there threat of maybe perhaps black marketing, spillages? How do you contain that?
No, that is why the emphasis is there that every battery should have an independent identity, like our mobiles which have got an IMI number. So, similarly, there should be an independent identity, what we call the unique identification number of a battery, that should be there. So, there are so many measures that, that our people are thinking around, that what to do so that the threats and the apprehensions that you are mentioning about, that is taken care of. Yes.
Okay. What's the priority conversion for government vehicles into EVs? Public transport, two-wheelers, four-wheelers, how does it work?
So, you see, these are two different streams. One is the private owned vehicles and second is the vehicles which are in public stream. My sense is that two-wheelers and three-wheelers in the private stream and the buses in the public stream, they are the first to be getting into gradually electrification mode, and that is what exactly is happening. You are watching that Government of India has given some support on another, at different stage. It could be financial support, it could be demand aggregation, it could be, all of the different type of support has been planned and has been given for public transport, for example. So, we are going in, we are thinking how to decarbonize our public transport systems, and that is why very ambitious national electric bus program has been launched, whereby we plan to support some 50,000 buses. That is a big number, that is a very big number, you see. So, my sense is that as far as public transport and electric buses in public transport is concerned, that would be a massive change, massive transformation in India. Similarly, in two-wheelers and three-wheeler stream also, you see, it is a phenomenal, the pace at which it is moving is absolutely top class. That is the reason why internationally India is considered as a happening place, because it is taking its electric mobility in a completely structured and on a fast track mode. Yes.
Okay. Let me get Mr. Gill here. Mr. Gill, you heard what Subhendu Sinha had to say. There, it appears to me, is a trust deficit between the government on one hand and EV makers on the other, and that could perhaps be the reason why the famed subsidy is not likely to continue. What are you going to do to bridge that trust deficit? Are you in conversation, with the top brass at Ministry of Heavy Industries? What have you heard from the power corridors at this point? What are you picking up?
Yeah, but before that, I'll just point out two small things. One is the battery swapping. In majority of cases, battery does not come back to you because you don't own the battery. And that's why the cost of vehicle goes down. So it's a battery belongs to the battery swapper. It is his business. And that's why it's a very successful thing. You don't have to worry about old or new batteries. That's one. Second is, as far as trust deficit is concerned, not at all, I believe, because it was there with the earlier sort of executives who have all left ministry, and we were sort of against a blind wall. But lately, with the new set of people, there is an absolute, lot of interaction that is happening, and jointly there is a possibility that we are working out on a resolution. It's only the time previously lost, because it started happening only 4 months back. 12 months were already lost. So the members on the brink of bankruptcy now, many are filing bankruptcy, many are going out of business. So it has come to a stage where urgency is so much. In the next 15, 20 days, if it doesn't happen, you will have a list of people who have said that, okay, we can't continue any longer. So there is no question of trust. It's a confusion. Okay. Confusion created by, perhaps, looking back, by set of those mails, dozens of mails which came from somewhere, I don't know, inside India or outside India, which had that type of an agenda of derailing, and they were successful in derailing to a large extent.
Okay. So if the government is listening to you now, what have you heard? Are they likely to continue? I mean, what we're picking up from papers could be different from what you're hearing from the government. Yeah, it's not reached a stage where government is committing it is going to continue, because within the government, executive says it's not in my power. It has to come from politics. The budget is not in my hands, so somebody higher up has to give me the 10,000 crore to continue. So I'm waiting for that to happen. But they are very clearly saying that we are with you for an early resolution, and this way, that way, whatever, not from a 0-1 situation.
It will be some sort of a reconciliation, and very soon we will be able to find a common path to keep the 13 people back on track. Everybody is bleeding, everybody is suffering.
Okay. Before I wrap up, I want to get Mr. Guha back again. Mr. Guha, you heard what Mr. Gill had to say. There is no trust deficit as such. We are in talks with the government. It may happen, it may not happen. What are your expectations as far as FAME subsidies concerned, and what's the future looking like for electric vehicles?
No, I think there is only one way to go when it comes to electric vehicles. That's upwards. India as a country doesn't have any other option. And I think this is too small an issue to fester on it. Get resolved. I don't have any doubt on that. But there are certain other larger issues which need to be addressed. As all of us know, this is not merely a government of India subject. The state governments also have a very important role to play when it comes to actual implementation on the ground, whether it's setting up infrastructure to manufacture chemical cell batteries or electric vehicles. Those kind of subsidies and other support measures, land, etc., those have to be ensured. It is also closely related with a set of other policies like the vehicle scrapping policy, which are again dependent on the state governments. And as all of us know, just like in the central government, there are 4 or 5 ministries which are working hand in hand to implement this or get this transition implemented